New Orleans Saints draft grade. Okay, we are going to talk about the entirety of the New Orleans Saints draft. We're going to try and throw a grade on it. And we're going to take a look at a few different analysts, kind of their thoughts on it. The first one is CBS Sports. Then we're going to take a look at Underdog. And then we will go to Pro Football Focus. Okay, so let's start with CBS.
Orleans, where there's plenty of uncertainty at the quarterback position. They add more uncertainty to it in the form of Tyler Shough after going with Kelvin Banks 9th overall. It's a lovely piece there at tackle, but to protect whom, Ryan Wilson?
Yeah, we'll find out. We don't know what Derek Carr's future is going to be. They have Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler on the roster. They got Tyler Shough at pick 40, and we'll all find out together. But Kelvin Banks, we know exactly what he's going to do. Ryan Ramchick.
If you look at the entirety of the class, I think the obvious calling card or the trend or whatever is that they're all experienced guys who can all come in and play. This is very different than the previous draft classes where you see around that 5th round, you start to see that dip into, William and Mary or North Dakota State or wherever, and you try and find these like hidden gems and developmental type guys. That's not really what this is. This draft class is a bunch of guys who have a ton of experience, have played a lot, are impactful at the team that they played at. I mean, even like Devin Neal. I think Devin Neal is the rushing leader at Kansas. Like, this is a guy who, I'll go ahead and tell you, Devin Neal is going to be the backup running back for the New Orleans Saints. He will be running back too. It will be Alvin Kamara and Devin Neal. It will not be Kendra Miller. I can promise you, Kellen Moore and his group don't care about Kendra Miller, don't care about Jordan Mims. It's Devin Neal and AK-41. Okay, you even get down to Fadil Diggs. Diggs played at A&M, was productive there, goes to Syracuse, productive there. Like, these are Danny Stutsman, All-American. Danny Stutsman is a all-around dog, a all-around stud. This is a guy who's going to come in and play. This is a guy who will be an impact player, and he's the 5th guy that the Saints took. You could also give a kudos, golden star, to the Saints for keeping all their draft picks. They came into this draft with a lot of capital and a team that likes to trade up. This is, we thought, okay, maybe they'll move some of this stuff around. Maybe they'll trade up. Maybe they'll try and mortgage some things, but they said, you know what we have to do. Get younger, get cheaper, get impact players. I think they did that. And, is this draft class, am I going to print this picture out, frame it, put it on my wall and look at it, put it right above my, in my bathroom, eye level? No, obviously not. But I think it's a good, solid class. Personally, I'd be very comfortable giving this a B+. Obviously, it swings on Tyler Shough. If Tyler Shough works out and he's just an average to above average starter, this is this is pretty close to an A+. If he doesn't work out, obviously that drops it a little bit, but swing for the fences at a quarterback. Swing for it. Swing for the fences with your guy. Super high ceiling or super high, possibility of greatness anytime you're taking a quarterback, because quarterback's the most important position in all of sports. But overall, I really like the entire class. The only player on here that I'm like, I'm not really sure, I don't really know very much about is the tight end, Maliki Mataveo. That's the only guy who, when they drafted him, I was like, man, I got to go back and do some tape here.
Check is retired. Trevor Penning, 5th-year option, not picked up, and he has struggled. Looking down the board there, I love Jonas Sanker out of UVA. They didn't have a lot of things to be excited about at UVA football last season, but Jonas Sanker was one of them. Danny Stutsman, got some run as a top 50 guy early in the fall, and then Quincy Riley is a get-after-it, undersized cornerback who plays really tough. And Devin Neal, talked to him at the Senior Bowl, ran to the 4.5s. He plays much quicker than that. So they're adding pieces, and this team is certainly better than they were 3 days ago. But the question,
and that's important. That's a really good soundbite right there. When you enter the draft, you want to exit the draft, and you want to say, we are better. We are a better football team. The Saints can say that. The Saints can say, we are a better football team. We made ourselves better. We got deeper. We have impact players at positions. I'm telling y'all, you're going to see a lot of those names a lot this year. You are going to see a lot of Danny Stutsman. You're going to see a lot of Devin Neal. You're going to see a lot of these players. This is not a check them out on special teams, check them out on practice squad or whatever. Like these guys, you will know who these guys are.
Question, Mike, of course, as I give him A-, is who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, that's obviously the biggest question mark, but it just wasn't a draft to really add quarterback. So that's the biggest sort of weird pick for me. Tyler Shough, top of the second round, just not a great track record of guys in that range. Right. So you've seen it at the NFL, especially when they're, going to be 26 years old as rookies. But I think they have 6 guys who within their rookie contracts could be starters. I love this draft. I agree. It's an A draft for me. Kelvin Banks was my OT1. Going down the board, Danny Stutsman was my LB3.
Yeah, Renner was huge on Banks. Renner had Banks ahead of Will Campbell. So obviously he's going to love this draft. But double A's, Arn Anderson. So you got A from Renner, A- from Will.
He is your transition plan from Demario Douglas. And then Quincy Riley.
Mario Davis. Listen, I'm gonna give these guys, let me say this. I'm gonna give everyone a little bit of a break during draft weekend. Think about how many players we're talking about. Think about how many guys are, flying around and getting picked, not getting picked, getting traded. They're going through every team. They're going through every pick. They're going through every round. Nobody's sleeping. I mean, I'm running on maybe 3 hours of sleep total, just pumping out videos. I saw my boy, the Trizzler, Trizzy Trace. He went live for every round. I mean, the guy, I think he did like 25 hours of live coverage over the weekend. So if you flub a name, you forget somebody, okay, sure.
Definitely a corner that fits into that New Orleans Saints cornerback room. One of their biggest needs. I think he could be an early starter. He's played a ton of football at Louisville. Yeah. He's scrappy. He can play a little bit of man coverage. So this draft for the New Orleans Saints, a much-needed turnaround for this franchise.
Yeah.
We're always good for a Seinfeld reference.
What do you got?
This is Atlanta.
Okay, they're moving to Atlanta now. So we're going to switch to Underdog.
Kelvin Banks, number 9 overall. And then with 8th pick of the second round, Tyler Shough, Louisville quarterback. Put a pin in.
I mean, let's just quickly look at this. Kelvin Banks is obviously your day one starter. Him and Talise Fuaga are your tackles for hopefully the next decade. All right. Tyler Shough, big question mark, but could be the franchise quarterback, could be your week 1 starter. Jonas Sanker, he won't start at safety right away because we have Tyrann and Justin Reed. Sanker will play. He is absolutely a guy you can be versatile with. He can play a bunch of different packages, and he will play on special teams as well. But once Tyrann or we start to, he moves on, then Sanker potentially would be the starter there. Stutsman will start day 1, and if he doesn't start, he will be a guy who's put into a ton of different personnel packages. He will be on the field day 1, week 1. Quincy Riley, day 1, week 1. Devin, Neal won't start, but he's going to get a ton of work.
In that one. 3rd round, a couple picks. Vernon Broughton, Texas defensive tackle. Then Jonas Sanker, a safety out of Virginia. Then we get
Broughton will play. Broughton is one of those guys too where they'll move all these pieces around. Brandon Staley is he's a play-by-play kind of guy where he's going to be versatile. He's going to move people in, move people out depending on the situation. So Broughton will absolutely get his time too.
To day 3, Danny Stutsman, Oklahoma linebacker in round 4. Quincy Riley, a corner out of Louisville. And then we close out with Devin, Neal, my guy, running back out of Kansas, and then a tight end out of UCLA and an edge out of Syracuse. Your overall thoughts here on the New Orleans Saints?
I'm glad that they didn't keep trading up for picks. That's what the Saints have been doing. And it's that's how you lose out all your depth. They kind of took the safe route here and go with Kelvin Banks in the 1st round. He can play guard or tackle. I think either spot they're just trying to figure out who's.
He's definitely going to play tackle. He made a good point. This is what you want the team to do. And the Saints knew, they knew the assignment, as the youth say. They knew the assignment. The assignment was get depth, get good, get young, get cheap. And they could have easily said, nah, forget all that, baby. We're trading 2-3 of these picks. We're moving up. We're doing whatever. But they saw what happened last year. They understand where we are headed, and they played it kind of safe and took it kind of chill. The only pick that is high risk, high reward is Tyler Shough. But if you go high risk, high reward, that's where you want to go with at the quarterback position. Because if you hit it, if you nail it, you're a genius. You're the greatest drafter of all time. You got your guy, right? You got your franchise quarterback. And if you don't, keep swinging. So I would much rather them take that huge swing on a quarterback than a huge swing on Marcus Davenport or Trevor Penning or Peyton Turner or some of these guys we've seen not pan out at relatively low impact positions.
A long-term starting offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks, to me, was one of the highest floor players. And I think that he's a little bit kind of overthought throughout the draft process.
Yeah.
To me, he's a top 10 player, goes top 10. I think all that's totally fine. Shough is going to be very controversial, but at the end of the day, like, he at least has like a path to being a starting quarterback just based off of his arm talent. Well, we can argue that like the odds of that actually happening, but the 40th overall pick, you're not expecting, like, if he turns out to be like a quality backup and you can mix him in for some starts to get through the season, like, I think that's okay. And there's like maybe a chance he can turn into like, I hate to even say it, but like Ryan Tannehill, there's a chance of that happening. And I think it was better to like go that route than like trade Morgan's the future and trade like all the way up. So
when you're talking quarterback, it's very easy to say, oh, well, he's Drew Brees or Tom Brady or like these elite level players. But that's not necessarily what you need in order for the pick to be good. If Tyler Shough is the level of Geno or Ryan Tannehill at the peak of his powers or Andy Dalton at the peak of his powers or Carson Palmer or, you know, like these guys who they're not MVP elite, franchise altering, whatever, you know, but they're good. If that's what Tyler Shough is, home run. Absolutely home run. This is controversial yet brave too. If he's Derek Carr, home run, right? If you just drafted a younger Derek Carr, okay, right? Carr, again, controversial. Don't re all over the keyboard. Derek Carr, good quarterback, good career. Okay. Is he an MVP? No. Is he a franchise-altering guy? No. Okay. But good career, good pick. If you're taking that at 40, if you see something there, Jared Goff's like super high end. But if Shough falls somewhere in there, if he falls somewhere in that production level, absolute home run, absolute lights out, absolutely nailed it. And if you're going to take a flyer on a position, take your flyer on the quarterback position. We talked about Jalen Milroe with Seattle, where Seattle's sitting here saying, if we find something cool, if not cool, but we're going to take our lottery pick. And I'd much rather them take the lottery pick on the quarterback. And Shough does have the one thing. If you are going to take a relatively unknown, if you're going to take a lottery, pick a lottery, the fact that you know he's got the arm and the athleticism, okay. If you think, we can work on some of the other stuff, with some coaching here and there, you can fix some things. You can't teach arm. Can't teach athleticism. You can't, I don't care how good of a coach you are, you can't give a guy a better arm. Right? So the fact that Shough has that, right?
Yeah.
I think the fascinating part to me is that they took Tyler Shough over every other quarterback not named Cam Ward. So that's again, something to remember with their quarterback evaluation. On top of it, I'm with you. When I watched him, I saw some like Aiden O'Connell-esque play, and that is a quarterback that is going to get some level of starts in the NFL. The issue with this is he might get not immediate starts, but a lot of starts because.
Yeah, so this is definitely my concern. So my concern is not only do you have to fast track Shough because of his age, but the Saints are in a situation where they got to fast track whoever, right? Like Spencer Rattler got fast tracked last year because of injuries and whatnot, but right now because of Derek Carr, and we're assuming he's not going to ever be in the state of Louisiana again. If Shough is your guy, which he is, he has to be ready for week 1. Like that's the thing where this isn't a wait and see kind of thing. This is okay, he's got to play. And that just cranks up that volatility. It just cranks up the risk, how I see.
As the Derek Carr situation is up in the air, Kellen Moore was asked about it, and he said, quote, "We feel great about Derek Carr. We will navigate the injury process." So that is a total unknown at this moment. And then Spencer Rattler was a true roller coaster during his time, during his rookie year. And yeah, when the offensive line was healthy last year, this offense worked. Now that was with Clint Kubiak. And then when it crumbled, the entire offense crumbled. Tyler Shough, to me, I just don't know how you can be a long-term starter if you handle disruption and pressure
Correct.
and just defenses trying to tackle you like he did at the college level this past.
It's another huge question. Another huge question mark. We've talked about it at length. For all the good stuff with Shough, the one thing that is kind of transferable that you should be concerned about is how unwilling he is to either be hit or deal with pressure, or when things go awry athletically, when things go awry, he can do stuff. He can play off schedule. He can escape the pocket. He can throw on the run. We've seen all that. But it seems like once things break down, he kind of breaks down. And in the NFL, it's almost always breaking down. You're almost always facing, a free blitz or the wide receiver, or you got to move on your reads, or the wide receiver isn't, your first read isn't available, or things happen. And being able to exist in that world is very important. And it's a year, but at Louisville, it seemed like that's where he struggled. So can he be coached out of that? Maybe. Like I said earlier, you can coach him out of that way easier than you can coach a quarterback to all of a sudden have a great arm. So if Kellen Moore and Tolzien and Nussmeier, if they're like, all right, we can fix this, you got to trust that they can. But that's what this whole thing hinges on. The entirety of this pick hinges on the ability of Kellen Moore and the brain trust to coach Shough to fix that. And they have pretty much until week 1 to do it. What's interesting is if Derek Carr was the starter, similar to Spencer Rattler, Shough is kind of who you want as that rookie backup, because he's like done with his physical development, where he's going to jump in there and he'll at least have the physical traits to compete at that level. Like Rattler jumped in. He should not have been playing last year, but he survived in the NFL solely off of his arm talent and solely off of his just God-given ability. Whereas someone like Jake Haener, who doesn't have that physical ability, you saw it was a wildly different play, even though Haener had a year of NFL experience. Because at a certain point, you can't teach, you can't coach those physical gifts.
Season. You just can't play it in the same way. So he either has to say like, oh, that was coaching and I play the game differently now, or just totally change at 26 years of age.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that Shough, that pick makes no sense if Derek Carr is on this roster. Like, to me, I want Shough starting this entire season. Let's see what the hell happens. If he stinks, then you get Archie Manning or a Nussmeier or something like that. Nussmeier, by the way, is his dad or uncle. So
this is the Derek Carr thing is going to cast a shadow until it's official. But yeah, you don't same. I said this about Michael Penix with Kirk Cousins. You don't take Michael Penix when you have a guy in Kirk Cousins unless you are ready to move off. You have to be ready to play him almost immediately. And Penix is way younger than Shough will be. But you don't draft Shough with the mindset of, oh yeah, we'll just have Carr play for the year and then we'll turn it over to Shough. Shough is going to play this year. And I think this to me is writing on the wall that the Carr thing is out.
Or whatever is literally coaching on the Saints. So we'll see what happens there. I hope that he just starts the entire season. We can see what the hell we have in him.
I think he will. I think you go into this and you throw him in there and you let him play and you let him figure it out for however long it takes. And then it either works or it doesn't. But I don't think you treat this with training wheels. I think you have to kind of just go all in. They've made this bet. They've made this bet with Shough. They pushed the chips in. You're pot committed at this point.
But the picks right after him, it's some tight ends, some kind of nose tackle types. So that part of the draft, it's a lot of these guys bust out anyways. And I understand shooting at least for the fences at a quarterback, just because you don't have a locked in starter there. And then the rest of the guys, I didn't watch Vernon Broughton, this defensive tackle. He was not supposed to go on day 2. So the rest of the draft doesn't really move the needle for me, but I like Kelvin Banks a lot.
The other note I'll add is their wide receiver room right now is Chris Olave, who has dealt with a whole bunch of head injuries. I hope he's going to be healthy. Rashid Shaheed, who also is coming off a significant injury, and then Brandon Cooks. That's the wide receiver room. So I think that.
Yeah, the wide receiver, you can't get every position. So I've had a lot of people say, why didn't we draft a wide receiver? They would have loved to. It didn't work out that way. So you can't draft every position. Undrafted free agents are a thing. Free agents are a thing, whatever. I saw a stat the other day, aka yesterday, that there are more Hall of Famers that have been from undrafted free agents than from rounds, I think, 5, 6, and 7. So, there's always, you just never know. So they will address the wide receiver room one way or the other. It is what it is. You only have so many picks. So, they do have to address it, but
there's some questions there too. Like Kellen Moore is going into a difficult situation,
Yeah, he is.
I do think the offensive line could be a real strength. Again, Kelvin Banks at left tackle, Fuanga at right tackle.
The offensive line is kind of the best part of the Saints right now. If Banks works out, if Banks is as good as Fuaga or better, the offensive line, when healthy, is the best part of the Saints. That's wild, right? Like, that's not something we would have thought of. I mean, it's amazing how fast that has happened. But if Penning works out at guard and Banks is as good as Fuaga and everyone's healthy, yeah, that's the best part of this team, is the offensive line, which is probably how Kellen Moore would have it. And Kellen Moore is in a difficult spot. There's a lot happening, especially because of the Carr situation. And now the wide receiver room's a little tricky. I said it 2 months ago. I think Kellen Moore will end up being the best coach in New Orleans Saints history. If he navigates the first 2 years of this, he is better than I even expected him to be. This is as hard of a test a coach can have starting off as you can imagine. Not only does he have the Derek Carr situation with the contract and the cap and Carr's injury, and will he play, will he not play, the Rolls-Royce Spectre reviews, but now he's got Tyler Shough, who is 26-year-old, we all know all that. He has to make him work. He also has this offensive line that he's got to move people around and deal with that puzzle. But he also has the wide receiver room, which is unfinished, and he has to deal with that puzzle. There is so much happening for Kellen Moore, and he's got to get all of them right. He's got to get every single one of those things right in order to even have a chance, right? So, and he's got until September to do it. If the Saints are average this year, and he's getting something out of these guys, and he's figuring out those puzzle pieces, and we've got the offensive line working, and we got the wide receiver room working, and he's got the quarterback where he wants it to be. I mean, I think this guy, if it works, I think Kellen Moore is the coach of the year, and I don't think it's close. So we're gonna find out really fast with a lot of these puzzles.
Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz hopefully playing for an entire season. So build off of that. We're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders for a good bit, not as much as he's been discussed this weekend, but a good bit when we get to the AFC episode of this show. But are you surprised that they value Tyler Shough as the quarterback 2 in this class?
Well, Jackson Dart too.
So my bad. My bad. Yes.
I think that's totally fair. I kept going back and forth in my evaluation between.
I mean, you could kind of argue they did view Shough as the second, because they could have had Dart at 9. They also could have traded down and had Dart. They also could have traded back in and had Dart. So they kind of were okay with Shough. I don't think it's, once you see what the Saints have really valued, they really valued the combine, the Senior Bowl, the interviews, the experience. Like, they really valued all that. Every single one of the guys that they drafted was a team captain or a lot of starts or, played multiple, like a bunch of snaps, like all of this stuff. So it does not surprise me at all that Shough is the guy that they liked at quarterback. It also doesn't surprise me at all when you look at the rest of the quarterback class and you look at Shuck's physical attributes. So, yeah, I'm not surprised whatsoever.
I mean, Shough and Shedeur, and that's like only on the tape. And Shedeur just didn't take the interview seriously. And I did see a quote from the Saints, and they said how much they appreciated Shough going and competing at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, running at the Combine, showing up to his interviews and taking it serious. And they needed somebody to probably start week 1. It's going to be him or Rattler most likely. And I understand them rolling the dice with Tyler Shough. And I listened to some of his interviews. I really liked the kid and
super high
for
character
him,
guy.
but he has to hang in there more to be taken serious.
You got to remember too. Let's say you have Shough, whoever, all in the same kind of world. Shough is 6'5". He does have the best arm, and he runs a 4.6. And he interviewed, and he had the combine, and he when you look at it that way, it's like, well, yeah, of course they would take him over some of these other guys who didn't do any of those things, who don't have those physical attributes. So I'm not surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, that was a total brain fart by me for forgetting about Jackson Dart. Yeah, they use the term momentum, which is basically draft riser, that people say is not true, but for Tyler Shough, it seemed to be that he went to the Senior Bowl, did everything there. Like you said, he ran at the NFL Combine. He did everything at the NFL Combine. Maybe some shade towards Shedeur Sanders and a few others' direction because he didn't do anything.
Yeah, and we'll get to it with the Dart conversation, but there's videos of Jackson Dart talking to the Giants staff on the sidelines at the Senior Bowl, and they talked about how much they appreciated Dart being there. Sometimes you need to actually talk to the people that are going to hire you.
Okay, I just quickly want to throw a bone at Devin Neal. I know this is a 6th rounder, and once we get running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and the like in round 6 and 7, this is basically glorified free agents. But this running back room needed someone other than Alvin Kamara, who just got a contract, but we know that they were linked with someone like Ashton Genty at the top, so they were at least open to having some level of a split backfield. Kendre Miller has done absolutely nothing. Maybe gets a fresh start with a new regime, but I think Devin Neal is one of these backs that will pick up the yards that are blocked for him. His eyes and feet are linked. Had a ton of production at Kansas on top of it. Has some passing game work too that I'm not saying this is going to be a split backfield 50-50, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Devin Neal's their running back 2 on this roster this year.
We talk about it all the time with new coaches coming in. They want their guys. They want the guys that way before the draft. We're still talking about Jordan Mims and Kendre Miller and whoever, Kevin Austin and Mason Tipton. It's you got to kind of forget about those guys because they're not Kellen Moore guys. They're not this staff's guy. Kind of same as Spencer Rattler to a certain extent. Certainly with Jake Haener. And this Devin Neal pick is writing on the wall for how they're going to view this backfield. Devin Neal's their guy. So if it's obviously Alvin Kamara's the starter, but beyond that, you got to assume Devin Neal is going to be who's sharing the backfield. Question mark is there a third running back? Who wins out of the rest of them? Who do they bring in? Whatever. But yeah, this is the Kellen Moore guy.
Yeah, Kellen Moore does not care about Kendre Miller. He cares about Devin Neal. So yes. I will take this serious. I think that in general, we saw this. We're expecting 10 running backs to go by day 2. There was 6. So I think we're going to have to kind of reset our brains. I think most GMs are doing the positional value thing, and we're just going to have to get more and more comfortable with day 3 kind of being the new round 3 draft capital. So I'm not going to completely eliminate these guys because they win the 4th, 5th, early part of the 6th round. These guys to me are at least in the conversation for dart throws and fantasy.
So we hear about the running back dead zone
So I saw a tweet. I can't remember who put it out there, but they were talking about the Browns draft class. And perception is reality, all right? But you could take that draft class and you could move it all around and it wouldn't be that crazy. The way that GMs and coaches are approaching the draft, I think, are very different now. And I agree. I think they're factoring in positional value. They're factoring in all of that. So where the players are drafted is kind of confusing. If you look at the Browns draft class, I can't remember all of it now off the top of my head, but if you take Shedeur and put him at the 33 pick, and you take Schlesinger and move him to the next pick, and then you take Gabriel and move Gabriel to the last pick, all of a sudden that draft class looks very, very different because it's more in line of what we expected. It's more in line with where you would expect these positions or players or whatever to go, but it's just not. The draft is moving into more of an analytical thing and more into that value thing. So I agree. You kind of have to move stuff around. For example, if Devin Neal is the Saints' 3rd round pick and Broughton is their 5th round pick, you're sitting here well, damn, Devin Neal, 3rd round running back. This guy's going to be legit. This guy's going to be whatever. But, you start factoring in positional value, start factoring all kind of other stuff, then, okay, Broughton's the third pick, our third round pick. Neal moves down to the 5th or 6th round or whatever. So it's kind of a Rubik's Cube. You do have to look at it a bit differently than I think we have in the past. But
fantasy football, are you saying day 3 is the running back live zone for
I'm not ruling them out zone. There's been too many hits.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, give your grade here for the Saints before we move on.
I'm going to give them a B. I think that the Shough is like a calculated decision. It'll get him through this year. And then I think Banks is like a long-term answer at a premium position and great character guy.
I think B is a little bit low if you're factoring in like Stutsman and some of these other guys really being impact players. But all right, so PFF gives the Saints a C+. Banks, Shough. Shough is the big one that they're going to kind of knock you on because it is so controversial. But look at some of the stuff they have when they talk about each player, right? So Shough, NFL size, NFL arm, 87.7 PFF passing grade. Broughton, 86.3 pass rush grade last season. 86.1 PFF grade, ranked 12th at the position in 2024. Sanker, NFL starter, tally of 15.4% forced incompletion rate, 15 coverage stops. Stutsman, 3-year starter, 90.9 PFF grade. Riley, broke up 9 passes, had 2 interceptions last season, 85.3 PFF coverage grade. Devin Neal, 90.5 PFF rushing grade. Mataveo, 2.4% drop rate. Diggs, 83.2 PFF pass rush grade. Like, this is what I'm telling you. They are drafting guys who have done it. I mean, if you just look at the grades, if I told you, oh yeah, we drafted a running back who had an elite 90.5 PFF rushing grade in 2024, you'd be like, well, damn, did we take him in the 1st round? No, we took him in the 6th round. If I told you we got a linebacker with a 90.9 PFF grade who played 3 years at Oklahoma, it's like, was that a 2nd round pick? No, we took him in the 4th, right? So they took guys who absolutely have shown they can do it. And again, when you are a Saints fan going into this draft, what did we ask for? Starters, impact players, guys who can play immediately. When you look at all these numbers and you look at these analytics, will it all translate? Who the hell knows? But you cannot deny that they took proven guys who have proven they can do whatever they're being asked to do at a high level. Now we have to see if it translates. But you can't be mad about, oh yeah, we took a linebacker who's a 3-year starter, All-American, 90.9 PFF grade in the 4th. It's pretty strong. So because of that, I think C+ is a little bit low. I think the C+ is because of the risk with Tyler Shough. But again, take a risk at a quarterback, it is what it is. So I'm pretty comfortable giving a B+ to a B, somewhere in there. I think A+ would be, giving an A+ is like, come on, what are we doing here? But I think B+, I'd be totally cool with a B+. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. What's your grade for the New Orleans Saints draft? Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.